Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're exploring how climate adaptation in cities around the world can deepen or reduce inequalities. Our guest represents extensive research in Manila, Dhaka, Detroit, and Naples, places facing wildly different challenges, yet all grappling with one core issue: making sure no one gets left behind. Let's jump right in.
Thanks so much for having me. Climate change is forcing cities to adapt. It's no longer optional. But in the process, displacement and other social impacts sometimes hit the most vulnerable communities hardest. We'll share real examples and discuss ways to make adaptations more equitable.
Let's start with Manila in the Philippines. The government's major flood control project along the Marikina River makes sense on paper, but it's come with real human costs, right?
Absolutely. The project aims to protect millions from catastrophic flooding, but thousands of low-income families on the riverbanks have been forced out. They often lack formal land titles, meaning they get pushed into even more flood-prone areas with fewer resources.
And gender plays a big role too. I saw data showing that women in displaced communities are about 30% more likely to end up unemployed.
Yes, precisely. Investigating those specific outcomes, like the extent of displacement, statistics on how many were moved, and how women's employment suffers, is crucial for designing fair policies.
Next up is Dhaka, Bangladesh, a city built on a delta facing sea level rise. They've created floating gardens, which sounds super innovative.
It is. These rafts rise and fall with the floodwaters, providing food security and a source of income. They've been hugely successful on a smaller scale.
But that's the key phrase, on a smaller scale. Researching the scalability and cost analysis of these gardens, especially for resource-limited areas, is essential if other coastal cities want to try it.
Exactly. It's one thing to float crops in a pilot community. Scaling them across a sprawling megacity would require significant investments. And for Dhaka, that's a challenge. Finding financial support from wealthier nations or global funds is pivotal here.
Switching gears to a shrinking city, Detroit in the US. Some might guess fewer residents means fewer climate issues, but that's oversimplified.
Right. Even with a declining population, Detroit faces extreme heat, flooding, and a shrinking tax base to tackle them. They've invested in green infrastructure, things like urban farms and new stormwater systems.
But are all communities benefiting equally?
Not necessarily. There's a long history of racial and economic segregation. That means many predominantly Black and low-income neighborhoods are starting from behind. Examining which neighborhoods actually get the green infrastructure investment and whether it lifts those communities is crucial.
So, investigating the distribution of these benefits and whether community voices shape those decisions is a big action item.
Naples, Italy is another shrinking city. Unlike Detroit, Naples has some EU funding for climate projects. So, is it smooth sailing?
Not exactly. Despite the funding, aging infrastructure and high poverty levels in certain areas make equitable implementation an uphill battle. Even if there's money, it doesn't always reach the people who need it most.
So it underscores that money alone isn't a silver bullet. You need effective planning and robust local governance to actually reduce inequality. Manila, Dhaka, Detroit, Naples, totally different contexts, but what unites them?
Displacement shows up everywhere, but with varying forms, different coping strategies. In Dhaka's informal economy, people pivot to street vending or small-scale businesses, whereas community activism is more organized in Detroit. Local realities matter. A successful idea in Dhaka won't automatically work in Manila without adjustment.
Right. And this is where digital tools and global coalitions can help cities share knowledge, adapt floating garden concepts, or replicate effective activism. Exploring how these tools speed up communication and facilitate learning is a big area for future research.
Yes, investigating successful models of community involvement in planning can show us how to include underrepresented voices. If people on the ground drive the decision-making, adaptation projects are more likely to be equitable.
As we wrap up, what's the core message you want viewers to remember?
Climate adaptation isn't just physical stuff like seawalls or storm drains, it's about making sure everyone can thrive. That means digging into the specific outcomes, like displacement numbers in Manila, the cost of floating gardens in Dhaka, or who reaps the benefits of green infrastructure in Detroit.
Absolutely. And it also means exploring ways to fund these solutions, especially in low-resource cities, and ensuring local communities have a say.
Exactly. This is a global conversation from Manila to Naples. If we listen to the people most affected, share what works, and act with urgency, we can shape a fairer, safer urban future.
Thanks so much for chatting with me today. Your insights have been invaluable, and I hope our viewers start thinking about what equitable adaptation looks like in their own cities.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for watching. We want to hear your thoughts. If you were designing a climate adaptation plan for your city, what would be your top priority for ensuring everyone benefits? Drop a comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more conversations on climate, cities, and social justice. Until next time.